The retaining ring for the 3/4 valve. Now you got to be careful whenever you're working this valve in and out like this. If you stick a pick down in here, you can scar that valve up and create a whole new problem trying to make that valve free. If that valve gets stuck, you don't have 3/4. So what I like to do is use my 90-degree pick, get in there and work that valve out of my way. Just gently pry that plug out. Just far enough to get a pair of needle nose pliers on the outside and work it out of it. That plug will get a burr on it over time from the valve just beating against the end of it. So you just take your plug, walk it around a little bit. See the rough edge on there. That rough edge right there is just a big old leak for your 3/4 clutches. Make sure your valve is nice and free. Valve stroke's absolutely wonderful. We've already had the valve out, cleaned it, make sure everything's intact. We're going to use that Sonax in plug kit we were discussing just a few minutes ago. One new plug out. We get one new O-ring now. That O-ring fits on the inboard end of the plug. Once you've got it in there, take it, roll it on the bench. What you're doing is you're sizing that O-ring to that plug. Once you've got it sized, small dab of assembly gel, put her back in. This is another one you don't want to force the plug. Take your time, put it in slowly, so you don't cut your O-ring. You fix another leak, 3/4 clutches will appreciate it. From there, we're going to put our shift valves back in the valve body. Valve and spring. Spring goes in first. It is closest to the forward accumulator, just like so. Put our other shift valve in. We've already put the forward shift valve in. Anytime we build, we always recommend putting the updated new OE style solenoids. Always put good quality solenoids. Don't go buying them off eBay thinking they're going to work and they're going to last. Buy the good ones. Transmission will appreciate
it. You mean good like OE or?
OE, or I try to stay OE on my shift solenoids as much as I can. There's different brands out there on the market. Transtar makes some real nice ones. Roster makes some nice ones. I've had the best success with OE solenoids or OE type replacement solenoids. Put those in and make sure your clips are installed nice and firmly, and your valves, shift solenoids, do not fall out. Next, we're going to put in our pressure control solenoid. Some guys will tell you to turn that screw on the back of it. Don't do it. I don't recommend doing it that way. You want to increase your line pressure, buy a kit that's right. That screw is preset in there for a reason. They done it that way. We like to leave it that way.
What is it, an Allen?
It's actually a torque spit down in there. Solenoid is installed correctly, you should be able to rock it, twist it side to side just a little bit. That tang on the inside fits against the flat. Check it with your tool. We're going to put in our 3-tube downshift valve. This spring has a known issue of breaking. Whenever we do them, we like to put the updated style spring in them. Put the valve back in place. Sometimes you gotta Gotta wiggle it around just a little bit, tap it just a little bit to get her to drop. Once it's dropped, she should move just nice and free as can be. Same thing, solenoid in. Once it's bottomed out, we put our clip in. Clip jumped out earlier. I wondered where that little turkey went. I thought we were gonna have to go play golf some more, find this clip. Alright, so we put our manual valve in. I like to just let them rest about 3/4 of the way in. Later we'll put that to the transmission. At this point we've got an assembled valve body. All valves have been checked. All valves have been inspected. Surface has been inspected. Taking a homestone to it and flatten it out to make sure that this thing is perfectly parallel. Like we did earlier, we homestoned our case. You always want to homestone both sides to make sure they're both nice and flat, have no burrs, have no high spots, no edges that can cut your gaskets and cause problems later. Now we're going to install our new Torlon balls. Your instructions if I can find the right piece of paper here. Instructions will have areas to cut or drill the separator plate. For some reason, this one, they did not give us a check ball diagram. That's okay. There it is. I just looked in the wrong spot. Same thing on our instruction sheet here. You can see the little white boxes. Those are where your check balls go. I like to put just a small amount of assembly gel in the holes before I put my balls in.
You want your balls in very deep?
Yep, you want them all the way at the bottom of the pocket. Another thing, whenever you're doing this here, you got to make sure that the assembly gel that you're using is not so thick that it won't allow the balls to travel. So once this is in the vehicle and running, let it warm up to operating temperature. This assembly gel turns to liquid and the balls can float. I like to use shop towel, clean, lint-free shop towel to keep all my balls laid on the table. If you lose your balls, it's kind of a bad day, so I like to make sure that they're all there.
I guess you'd have to order them if you misplaced one, or?
Yeah, the Torlon balls don't come in very many transmissions, so you'd have to order them. We keep them in stock if anybody needs them. Feel free to reach out, give us a call, comment, whatever you got to do there, and we'll make sure that you guys get taken care of. Like I said earlier, we want to see guys out there learning a new trade and trying to better the transmission industry the best that we can. Now that everything's installed, we're going to put the valve body to the side, work on our separator plate, and get it valve body on. We've got our accumulator body that we set up earlier. We've got it ready to install. We've got our separator plate. The modifications are done to the separator plate. The reverse or the separator hold down plate, it's installed. Filters are where they're supposed to be, so we're going to put a couple of bolts in and put a valve body on. For those of you guys out there watching that know a thing or two about 4L60s, you'll notice there's that little brass plug down there. You guys are all probably wondering, what the heck is that thing doing there? That don't belong there. This transmission was previously built to accommodate a vacuum modulator style pressure system, and in certain applications, if you guys are trying to put this thing in something else that it didn't come in or didn't belong in, and you're trying to use vacuum to control your pressure rise, that's a possibility that can be done. We like to use a computer the way it was engineered and the way it was designed to work, and make it work. But if you have to, you can do it that way. We're going to snug our 1-2 accumulator down. You'll notice there's guide pins in here. The reason there's guide pins in here is this hole and this hole are your two important holes. These ones, if they're in first, all the rest of them will line up every time. We like to put those in, put our plate on, hold down plate and accumulator plate, torque these, pull our guide pins, set the valve body in place. You'll notice the Z-bar is installed, ready to hook to the manual valve. If you guys are wondering what happens if you leave that thing unhooked, I'll tell you now, it won't move. Make sure she's installed. Link is in. Valve body is set in place. I like to eyeball down through a couple of holes, make sure that it looks like it's where it's supposed to be. Our pressure switch manifold has been air tested and ready to go. We're going to start putting some bolts in. Very important that you start this bolt first. That bolt is your lineup bolt, as well as that one up there. So we like to make sure that those bolts go in first. The 3 longest bolts go here. You're assembling this thing and you accidentally drop your bolts in a big old pile, or dog walks by and kicks them off the bench, or whatever the case may be. Cat gets up there and wants to play bolt man. The 3 8mm bolts that you took out during teardown go in these specific holes. If these 3 bolts are installed incorrectly, say you put one up here, you put one right there, it'll lock the gear train up and ruin the transmission. I've seen many a transmissions ruined because of those 3 bolts. Make sure you put them in where they're supposed to go. Like I said earlier, I'm sure you guys are noticing the valve body bolts are just threading right in. Always thread all your valve body bolts in by hand before you attempt to use a speed handle or anything else. You guys wondering, this is not on fast forward, we just like to put speed handles around here. As always, get our torque wrench out. Make sure she's set to 100 inch-pounds. Yep. I like to torque these 2 bolts first just because those are your guide bolts. We'll put in, don't throw your torque wrench on the ground. And we'll start in the center and we'll work our way out. You guys, I'm sure, have noticed you guys have noticed that these 2 bolts have been left loose. I do that for a reason. I like to go through and torque all my valve body bolts. First pass with my right hand. All the way around. We'll go over them here a couple of times. Go back to the accumulator bolts. Roll them all over again. since I'm anal, I like to go back through here and do them all again with my left hand. Just to make sure my right hand wasn't crazy that day or fell asleep. Then we're going to start on the 8mm bolts. We'll do the 3 in the back. We'll do them once, check them twice, give them the lefty once, and then last but not least is the pressure manifold. The reason I like to leave these guys loose is they make me think about what I'm doing. Sometimes you get in a hurry and you'll speed right through it and then, oh man, hold on, did I torque those bolts? Well, I'll sit here and spin them in by hand, look at my work, think about what I'm doing. It's easy to get distracted and lose track, forget to do the accumulator bolts, forget to do your hold down bolts, or I can't remember if we torqued this. Well, I remember torquing those and I remember taking my time and thinking about it. So now we'll do our pressure manifold, second time, and the third time. Next, we're going to install our wiring harness. Earlier we pulled this guy to the side, laid her out. If this is not installed before your valve body goes in, the only way to get it in is to remove your pressure control solenoid. To do that, you have to remove your 1-2 accumulator. So, we know everything's torqued, we're happy with everything. We'll start at one side and we'll work our way around. Plug in the EPC solenoid. We'll string out. We'll plug in our shift solenoids, one at a time. Make sure that they click. We'll plug in our pressure switch manifold. Now your harness is awful floppy. So what you want to do here, you got a tang, sits underneath the pressure switch manifold, get it in place, and then work your wires a little bit to get them to fold where they need to lay. Once you've got them where they need to lay, we'll kind of just set in place. Put in our lockup solenoid. These aftermarket harnesses seem to have a little extra wire on the lockup solenoid. I don't know why they do them that way. I like to keep my wires towards the back of the solenoid. Drop her in, hook up our 3-2 downshift solenoid, like so. We're going to put our lockup solenoid bolts in. Don't use the right socket, you can't use your speed cable. Get it in place. And torque our bolts. Alright. The only thing we have left at this point is to put our primary lockup solenoid in, which I gotta figure out where we like to put in a new solenoid, especially for lockup, especially your shift solenoids, pressure control solenoids. All these solenoids just take a lot of abuse, and I feel like it needs to have new solenoids. So we'll get this puppy inched in there. Put your retaining clip in, like so. And just hook your wire up, like that. This part of the valve body is done. We've torqued all of our bolts. We've massaged our harness into place. I feel pretty happy about it. We're going to put in our detent roller. If you leave this guy out, it'll do some fun stuff too. I've actually got to see that one in a worst case scenario deal. Guy brought me a unit and that was left out and couldn't figure out why it just randomly shifted gears on its own. So make sure you put that thing in too. Yet again, we'll get out the torque wrench. I like to set it at 15 foot-pounds. Double check it. Previously, during case inspection, we put in a new manual shaft seal, put our rooster comb and our outside linkage back on. We do that so we can move the manual valve in and out and ensure that the Z-bar and the manual valve are moving freely and traveling all the way in both directions. At this point, you should be able to roll it all the way back, spin the output shaft, and watch the linkage engage the parking pole and go into park. At that point, you will not be able to move your output shaft. You can move your output shaft, you've done something wrong. Stop and go back. Put her back in neutral, so the installer guy will be happy with you. Put a little assembly goo on our filter. Your filter seal can be changed with the transmission assembled. I like to do it with the transmission apart. On a service, you guys will want to change that filter seal. So we're going to show you how to do it with the transmission assembled so you can see how it works. We use a cape chisel to go down next to the filter seal. Usually you can find a lip. Once you find your lip, don't mar up the aluminum. Cut your filter seal. Rise it right out of there. Just like that. Filter seal is out. Destroyed intentionally. Eventually I'm going to get good at basketball and I'm going to be able to make those trash cans throughout the court. Eventually. For those of you guys wondering, 19mm socket does the job of installing that filter seal just absolutely wonderful. What we like to do is get our hand in place, get our filter seal located. Make sure you drive it in square. If it's not square, you'll leak. Filter seal is installed. Now then, put our transmission filter in, just like so. No beating, no hard forcing, it should just slide right in. At this point, we're ready for a pan gasket and a transmission pan and a little bit of torquing. And we'll get a bell housing on it and get her in the truck. Hopefully the next video you guys see from us, we will be installing this transmission. And we will get it in, get a pressure gauge on it, show you guys what it's supposed to do, and take it for a test drive and show you how she works.